Amber, Underground. The story of the Giantslayer Endeavor. Chapter 3. So marathons 1 and 2 were behind us, and 3 was on the docket for 4 weeks away. And 3 had been on my mind since the beginning. I knew it was going to take place in the mountains, and I actually had plans to take us to the mountains. This is actually one of the first times we talked about going on location. It became too hard to pull off with such short notice. Once the project got going, we realized this is just not going to happen. We only have these 4 days to play. I was definitely concerned about the size of this adventure, and when you play professionally, one of the things you have to do is look through the lens of like logistics, right, for how you're going to pull off sessions and what you're going to accomplish in a session. I'm sure that all the podcasts and streamers and so forth, that are out there, they're all doing the same thing, right? There are times when they think about the show first, and in this case we have to think about, we're trying to actually play and complete the adventure, so we've got to think about how that is possible, right? We're not necessarily worried about how it's going to look or sound. It's about whether or not we can complete it, and we're still playing this thing every encounter. We're role playing. This is like a regular session. It's just that it goes on for 4 days, or in this case 83 hours, almost 93 hours. This marathon was, oh my gosh. I mean, I knew going in, I was looking at it, right? So go sort of toward that lens of logistics here. I was looking at the 30 to 40 encounters that were average per adventure path volume. And that's something that Paizo's been doing for a while. Most of them tend to average about that. So let's say you have, let's say it's a big module. Let's say you have, or a big volume. Let's say you have 40 encounters. Okay. So 40 encounters, what's fair? Like a half an hour. So 30 minutes per encounter. Well, in that case, 20 hours. Now you got to figure role playing, treasure distribution, experience divvying. I mean, the normal just to and from, right? That go on, like it goes on during adventures. This is part of Pathfinder in general, and every tabletop role playing game. You have all this other stuff you're doing besides the combats, right? And some of that is just it's table talk occasionally too. There's stuff that just goes on, planning for a major encounter, planning for a boss fight. Some of that stuff takes a while. And when you're figuring in that you've got 4 days to play this thing, and you don't want to have to play 15 hours a day, that's not how we set out to do this. I don't know what we were doing, but we probably just figured like 12. I mean, 15 was not what was in our heads. And it was far more than that by the end. This adventure was huge. Okay. It's Tim Hitchcock. And if you know Tim, or you've heard him speak before, or we have a chance he lives here on the East Coast at the time, lived here. But yeah, so we actually had a chance to get to know him, and he loves the idea of an open sandbox style adventure, but that one that also kind of follows a path, a lot of times, like a journey, right? So you have things like volume 2 of Serpent's Skull, and here you have volume 3 of Giantslayer, where it's sort of like this race in a sense. Like we felt like we were under some pressure from the story, that we needed to we need to figure out what was going on. We need to get up into the Mind Spin Mountains and accomplish our goals. And it was really taking off. The adventure path was really taking off now, and we were excited to see some serious giants in this marathon, and we knew we would. This was, you're at that level now where it's going to go down. There's going to be some hard hits. There's probably going to be a character death or two. That's normal. In fact, they're going to be great because they're going to be against giants. And we actually ended up seeing a 20-20-20 from the Amber die in this marathon, which is awesome when it happens. We love that. And you do see those, I'm going to say frequently. I mean, it really just does this weird thing where it chains the 20s, so you don't see them, like, I would say, more often than usual. No, that would be obviously loaded, but it's not. It's just this weird anomaly of the 20-20-20 that will drop every now and then when it hasn't done anything in marathons. So it speaks when it chooses to. It'll curve an encounter the way it wants. The Amber die, as I like to say, tells the stories here, not your PCs. So here we go. Let's talk about the place that we actually went to. This was Edgewater Park. Okay, so Edgewater Park, we needed, once again, we needed a location, and we couldn't use the ones we normally rely on. At the bottom of our list was a place in New Jersey that one of our guys had moved to. He was kind of like between locations, so he got a cheap apartment and something, it's a very affordable place called Edgewater Park. Now, Edgewater Park, I teach in Willingboro, New Jersey, and it's near there. It's a place that, so I do homebound instruction sometimes after school, and I'll travel to, a student's house and do tutoring or teach them, one-on-one if they're homebound for whatever reason. When a teacher goes to homebound in Edgewater Park, it requires police escort. And we knew right away this was going to be a place unlike anything we'd ever brought a marathon to before. So here we go. We pack up our gaming materials. We're moving them in. We're just, we park right there in front of the apartment. Oh yeah, come on. All right, bring the dice in, guys. Let's get the miniatures, markers, get some maps. Everyone got their props, You got your sword? Yeah. So yeah, we carry it all in, good times, and move it into Eric's apartment there. It's pretty much, it's 2 rooms. He has a bedroom and then just the main area there. But we also had access to a kitchen, which was nice, right off the main living area where we're going to play. We did have to all sleep in the place where we played. They actually gave me the bed, which you should do for your GM. The GM needs to be rested. If you get 5 hours of sleep, GM needs all 5. And it can't toss or turn, if the GM's rolling around unable to sleep, it's going to be a rough marathon, a rough day. Unfortunately, it does kind of go like that. That's one of those elements. When we talk about the lens of logistics, there is, unfortunately, the way this game works, one person that without the game doesn't go, right? So it's not how we want it to be, but yeah. So they'll give me the bed and do that whenever we're really strapped for space, which we were. We were very strapped for space. We had a lot of cool things going down, though. Instead of going to the mountains, we went to Edgewater Park, which was just as exciting in many ways. And I ended up, we figured if we didn't leave the apartment for 4 days, everything would be cool. We just, as long as the screaming, natural effing 20 and stuff like that was going on didn't disrupt anybody, and we kind of just watched our volume at certain hours, we'd probably be all right. In fact, I only had to leave at one point. I drew a map on the back patio, got my markers, got my vinyl, I'm out there drawing a nice fantasy battle mat, and there was some interesting stuff going on in the little courtyard there, but nothing to see here, just drawing a map, and, got it back inside real quick, probably the fastest draw in recent memory. And so, yes, everything was cool. We managed to get through our marathon as far as Edgewater Park was concerned, but as far as other stuff we did actually have going on, we had a guy come down from Maine with Sterling, so that was fun. We were kind of vetting him actually, and so he ended up having some other stuff go down in his life. I think he was in college, so a lot of times things change, and then somebody has to move west or move too far away. Essentially, they can't join, even if you do vet them and you want to keep them around. But yeah, we had a guy come down. That was fun, and we also had a new backdrop. We decided if we couldn't go to the mountains, we would buy a massive backdrop of a mountain view and just hang it in the area where we played. Maybe even do a group shot in front of it, which we did. And as you know from our material now, the backdrops became something that's staple in every project. We do this for all of them now. It's actually a lot of fun. We pick them out, and we'll change them up for every volume of an adventure path sometimes. Sometimes we just change them up. For Slithering, we had the same 4 for both parts, part 1 and part 2, and just kept the same jungle look. Maybe we rotate them, so we'll have 4 different backdrops and kind of rotate them around. But yeah, this is our first time we ever experimented with it and really enjoyed it. We're like, if we had 4 of these things, imagine what if we surrounded ourselves in backdrops and played inside the mountains that way, And so we want to still do that again. Maybe that's on the docket for the future, and who knows? I don't want to give too much away here, but yes, this was our first time playing around with that. And we knew we were going into a beast of an adventure with all these encounters and how long it was going to take. We were headed for a massive marathon that finished with a 25-hour session on my birthday. The very next day was Eric's birthday, so it was a wild one. And just a 25-hour, to close this thing out, that was grueling. That was absolutely grueling. Let me get there, because it was actually the last day. So we start out, everything's cool. first couple days, we actually have also a brand new sort of like, not tablecloth, really like a sheet we were using. It was this off gray kind of, and it was really nice. And of course, we told everybody, don't eat anything on this. Just don't mess it up no matter what. We just got this. It just has to last through the project, guys. Obviously, we can get sloppy with it near the end. Who knows what we're going to do after this project? Let's just take care of it as a group, right? So you give one of those like GM speeches, don't spill on the maps type of thing. Don't mess up the tablecloth. Don't ruin our settings, But players be players. And yeah, I'm going to call you out here, Eric, because this is what we do on Ember Underground. We tell the stories of how it actually went down. And yes, Eric sat down about, 5 minutes. I like to believe it was 5 minutes because 5 minutes makes me feel better. Eric sat down with a nice big bowl of cheese fries and didn't notice that he was the only one sitting down, that everyone was standing around the table. In fact, off from the table a few feet. Very careful not to spill near the new sheet that we were using. And I like I said, I just want to tell myself it's 5 before we had cheese fries on the brand new sheet that was going to display our maps, display our terrain, our miniatures, our placards. Yeah. Well, let's just tell ourselves it was 5. So now we're ready to play. We're ready to go. We've got all this new stuff, and we take off, and we hammer through the first couple days, and everything's cool. It's just a long adventure. So far so good. Violent, very violent adventure. A lot of combat and some, some death. We were due for some death. We knew that. And our sleeping arrangements become kind of an issue. At the time, Eric, who also, in reference to cheese fries there, already had a fun first day, found that, he didn't bring any sleeping bag or pillow to this marathon. Eric is famous for, in the order, sleeping in the most outrageous locations, most uncomfortable spots. And to be clear here, this is Eric Germer, who we call Germs, but Eric Germer, not Eric Lim. And Eric Lim has also been known to test the limits of sleep, but Germer beats everybody by far. So here we go. This time he wasn't in the shed or on the patio or wrapped up in an air mattress that wasn't designed to fit in the area that he was trying to sleep in, or on the kitchen floor. This time he was just on a carpet with nothing else. And the carpet was brand new. So if you know anything about when you get brand new carpets, of course, there's all that like fuzz, kind of like scratchy, itchy, rough fuzz that you get when you sleep on a carpet. And he roughed it. He went through like 2 nights like that, right? And he was looking rough on day 3. And we're kind of like, you all right, man? I was thinking, oh, here we go. Somebody's sick. And, that wouldn't have surprised me because of the way it had been going. But it was May. So we're like, okay, cool. It's not winter. None of us came in here sick. We're all good. But I think he's sick. Well, I guess we probably did in that case. But if it was true, no, he wasn't sick. He wasn't sick. He was simply, I don't know, 10 hours. Maybe we tried to sleep by that point. I don't know if he got 2 in there. He spent most of the day rubbing the itchy stuff off of him. And it was just all, it was, oh my gosh. Because marathons, we definitely shower. It all depends on the schedule. Look, I'll say this. Marathons now, oh my gosh, totally different. Totally different. I'll tell you some of these stories as we go. But yeah, totally different. Much, much different. Marathons back then. No, you can't, listen, if let's say we stop for a shower once every day, you're talking about the whole group and one shower. No way. We don't have time. We have to play an entire volume of Adventure Path. We have to get to this world record. We have to do something no one's ever done before. We are not going to be slowed down. We're not going to jeopardize this marathon by simple stuff like that. Come on. And no location, no matter how dangerous or exciting, is gonna get in the way. And I like to use exciting when I think of Edgewater also. But yeah. So this marathon, Oh my gosh. What else? Oh yeah, wait a minute. This is great. Okay. So the artifacts. We ended up giving away. You got so many artifacts in this. First of all, play Giantslayer because you get to use so many artifacts. It's pretty much like the artifact AP. And we were like, what is going on? This is incredible. We've always wanted to have this many artifacts in a campaign. They're usually things you see in, back in the old days of D&D, like you saw it in the DMG, but you could never actually find one. You never knew. You always heard of somebody like at the playground in their group who somebody found an artifact or something. You're like, that GM just cheats, whatever. But no, this one actually has artifacts and you get to use them if you don't give them away like we did. So, we already gave away the hammer. Well, this time we gave away some more. We had acquired a couple things that at the end we were kind of speaking with like this, she was like a sage and of giants. And as I recall, like something like that, she was like sort of like a protector of the bloodline of giants and so forth. And she just was really concerned about her people in the future and, the ancestry of giants. And so she argued really convincingly, apparently, and stuff does go down like this sometimes at 4 a.m., that we should just give up the artifacts. They weren't ours to keep. They didn't, obviously, we were intending to do harm with them in some ways, and she was going to be a person to better look out for them, and she had better judgment than we did. And this is all, my argument was much better back then. I can't remember exactly how it went down, but it was basically like this long, we role play. Okay. It was this long role playing encounter that will easily eat more than any combat. We spend far more time role playing, and that's what does slow us down. So people see our numbers sometimes, they go, well, they were together for this long and they played for this long. Yeah, that's just usually a ton of role playing that goes on that's slowing us down, because it's still the essence of the game, right? So we don't get to that Spire mode or role playing with purpose where we're just really trying to knock out encounters, even if they are role playing. That only happens on, say, like the last day, like it did in this marathon. We ended up getting to the last day. We were behind schedule. We'd given away our artifacts. It was brutal. And all of a sudden, we or maybe we gave them away on the last night. I can't quite remember, but either way, I remember the last day was 25 hours. 25 hours. It was crazy. I had a cookie cake for my birthday that just sat next to me on the floor, and I would just eat a piece off of it every now and then because I don't know. I figured if I just had enough sugar and caffeine, we could push through this thing. And the adventure was epic. It really was. The maps were gigantic. The Cathedral of Minderhall, this thing, you have to go check it out. The pics are crazy. This thing I drew, it's two massive mats, the Mondo mat, of course, and then we needed another mat that actually went off to the side. This thing was just gigantic. We had to put all these tables up to be able to play on it. Just, one of the biggest maps we've ever played on, and a great time. And so we're reaching the end of this thing, and it comes to like about 2-3 a.m. 2-3 a.m. on the night before, or morning of the last day, I should say, morning of. And that's when we look at each other, and this does happen in the order. There are lots of marathons where we'll look at each other about that time, and we kind of know we have a lot left to play and maybe too much. And someone will say, are we going to push through? Someone else will look around and say, yeah, are we pushing through? And the group will usually nod. It takes a while to kind of accept around the table that we're about to do what we're, going to have to do here, which is push through. There won't be sleep tonight. It's 3 a.m. and they all look at me for the final call. I'm the only one who knows how many encounters are left. I'm the only one who knows roughly what we're going to run into as far as setups or builds, or if I still have a map I have to throw together or something like that. Usually not with the maps. But if something like maybe they go off course, I might have to draw something. You never know. So I'm the only one who knows, and I have to make this call. I try to gauge what everybody wants to do, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter. If we have to play through, we have to play through. Once again, back to that, this is what it takes to play professionally, and our goal is to get this thing done. We don't want to get the report over to Paizo. We got to compile our data and, get our report written up and stuff like that. So there's things that have to happen immediately after the marathon. We can't, miss the deadline, essentially. Then it would jeopardize the whole project. So yeah, we pushed through. We pushed through, and it was brutal. That one really was. I remember being extremely tired, and if it wasn't for how great of an adventure it was, I think I can say this of many, many Pathfinder marathons. that the authors of these adventures don't know how good they really are sometimes, because a group that can play 4 days straight on very little sleep and then push through really a 25-hour session on the last day, that's all you need. There's the evidence right there. You want good adventures? Yeah. I mean, if they were boring, believe me, we would have been done this thing a long time ago. The whole project would have collapsed. And that is the story of Marathon 3 of the Giantslayer Endeavor. Quite epic. Had a great time. Maybe we'll go back to Edgewater Park someday. And I know you're wondering whatever happened with that thing I brought up in the last chapter. Yeah, see, outside of Marathon 3, we were all about to return to our regular lives, go home, put Marathon 4 on the docket. And one of us had to go home and attempt about a DC 35 diplomacy check. And that was because Alex hadn't told his wife that the project was 6 marathons long. He figured it would be a good idea to wait 3, got the approval for it. That's 1 marathon now, every 4 weeks. Marathon, 4 weeks, marathon. And these things are 4 days apart. 4 days long. So you're taking days off. You come back completely exhausted. So forget the day after all that. We ate breakfast at a diner. There's a shot on Instagram from that morning from way back. The diner, I just was quiet. It was like silent. We were so dead. You return home to your family, a mess, in your personal life or professional life, a mess. And all you can think of, and all your brain is doing, is just replaying the greatest moments of the marathon. And that is why we all marathon. And you only experience this if you do this. I recommend everybody should try a marathon at some point. Just because, yes, for days, you're going to be replaying everything. You're really stuck in it. So after he kind of shakes that off, he decides, I'm going to go for this diplomacy check. Hey, babe, there's, I told you there were 3 marathons. Well, and she's all like trying to congratulate him on like finishing the project after 3 of them. And, it's like, here we go. Yeah. So clearance was gained. Diplomacy check sort of made to finish the project. As far as what would come after that, that's, I might let Alex tell that himself at some point. But yeah, to finish the project, gotta say, man, you pulled it off. So got the clearance. We're going 3 more. Here we go. Part 4. And for part 4, we knew we were going once again to a new location and we couldn't wait. It was going to be back to where it all started. That old house in Cherry Hill, New Jersey.